Namaste, yogis. Welcome to episode number 1 of the Happy Jack Yoga podcast. We're so honored to be here with you and really come together in this new platform. So we see this as an extension of Happy Jack Yoga University and the community. By the way, we've got some live yogis here with us today. And this is something that we're going to do, is that we're going to facilitate this podcast live weekly in Zoom so that you can join us. And really the intention is to bring community together. The intention, it's something, especially coming out of the pandemic, the importance of coming together and supporting one another through the ups, through the downs, and really understanding what yoga is. So that's something we're going to talk about. A little bit about us. So Happy Jack Yoga was founded in 2010. Happy Jack is my nickname. My parents gave me that nickname when I was a kid. I was just a really happy baby. Then as I grew up and got older, went off to school, I got teased a little bit, I got bullied, and I gained a bunch of weight, and I really lost that inner happiness. And then one day in my late 20s, when my mom suggested I try yoga, I really just started peeling away those layers and got back to being a joyful human being again. And so really came back to being Happy Jack. And so Happy Jack Yoga was born. And, founded in 2010. I won't tell the whole story right now, but just to give a couple of little points along the way. 2012, ended up leaving a career at John Deere, had been there for 10 years as an engineer, and it was a great career and a great path, but it wasn't my passion. And then having found yoga and great people like we have here with us live right now, we got Elizabeth, Katie, Sue, Tammy, Alice, who are joining us on this first kickoff podcast. So thank you for being here, and just spending time with people like all of you. It just made me realize this is the kind of people I want to be with. This is how I want to spend my life. So anyways, did something radical in 2012, quit John Deere, took a one-way flight to India, and just ended up, in a few different trips, ended up spending more than a year in India, studying, doing more yoga teacher training, and really just embracing the yogic lifestyle. And it's so vast, and there's just so much to it. And as in upcoming episodes, when we really talk about what is yoga and what is a yogic lifestyle and how can we make it accessible to each of us, in the West, there's so much available to us and accessible. And at the same time, we don't have to feel like we need to do it all. And we're not here to compare to one another. I happen to wake up at 4 a.m. every day. Hanna doesn't. She's more flexible. And I see Elizabeth shaking her head. Nope, me neither. And that's okay, right? We're not here. We don't all have to be the same. We don't have to do the same thing, but being with people who believe in us and lift us up. And so that's really a big part of what yoga is. And so anyways, India 2012, a few different highlights. I taught yoga for Tony Robbins for about 5 years at his events to thousands of people. Some of the yogis that connect with us live here, we met through Tony. I'm currently now studying at Harvard Divinity School. Today is my first day back to classes, second year of school. And so right after this podcast, I get to go to a class on the Upanishads, which is a great sacred yogic text. And so it's just such a beautiful space to be in, where I feel like, and this wasn't always the case, by the way, I'm now approaching mid 40s, but at this stage of life where so many things are aligned, my morning practice, I got my puja space over there. So I wake up and I live these yogic practices in the morning for several hours. And then I head off to school and I get to study, these yogic texts. And one of the courses I take is Sanskrit, which is the language that the yoga teachings were passed down in. So it's like I'm studying the language and I'm reading the texts, and then I'm getting on my mat and doing the practices, and then going to temples and going to ashrams and coming together with all of you and really getting to experience it. And so this is, I guess it's taken time, but it's a beautiful feeling when there can be that sense of integrity of like everything is aligned. And by the way, that doesn't mean that life always happens as expected. In fact, that's we all know that's not the case. But maybe just before I continue, I'll pass it over to Hanna and just share a little bit about yourself and yoga and what brought you to this path.
Oh, yeah. What brought yoga to me was also something unexpected. When I was 31, my husband unexpectedly passed away, and I was left alone with a 3 and a 5-year-old. And the experience of losing someone, of course, there was depression and shock and grief and everything. But what what was yogic about it for me, if I can put it in those terms, is that the experience of losing someone didn't make any sense to me, in that I was not raised up in a paradigm where we talked about souls or the soul's journey or what happens when a person passes away. And my experience of my husband's passing was that he wasn't here anymore, but he existed in a different way, if that makes sense. And so the same week my husband passed, I was lucky enough to find a therapist who somehow intuitively, or maybe through what I was sharing, she was saying, you should try yoga. And then I did right away. I hopped into yoga classes, and I kept on doing therapy. I still see the same therapist. And so what I want to say is that yoga for me gave another paradigm, another viewpoint, perspectives that I did not inherit from the culture. I'm from Finland. I grew up in Finland. And so I did not have that type of understanding of what happens after we pass, what's energy, what's the soul, what happens when we practice yoga and meditate or do pranayama breathing techniques. So then I was lucky to be exposed to this massive tradition, which is also very varied, of yoga, of Eastern teachings that helped me navigate what I had to go through. It took me years. Now it's 16 years ago, and it still kind of guides me, the teachings of yoga, on a subtle level. But what I would say, like, this podcast is also about is, as you can hear from our introduction, for us, yoga is not only yoga poses or breathing techniques or meditation. It is a lifestyle, and it keeps, taking us places and showing us different aspects of being a human being in a physical body, navigating life, both the blissful moments and the difficult ones and all the boring ones in between, right? So that's why we are so passionate to live yoga with you, our community, and to keep exploring together.
Yeah, so well said. I mean, I feel like it's there. We truly do. We love it so much. Like, and especially being together, whether it's in person. We had a retreat this summer. We spent an amazing weekend with friends this past weekend, and even just being here in Zoom with all of you. There's nothing else in the world that we'd rather be doing, and that's a really nice feeling. And so, we met, it's almost 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago, Hanna, I was leading a yoga workshop in Helsinki, Finland. I was living there at the time because my mom is from Finland. And, it was the biggest workshop I had ever taught. There was 71 students, and that was pretty huge. And I remember leading that workshop, and it felt so good. It was amazing. And Hanna, you came up to me at the end of the workshop, and you actually brought one of my marketing flyers, and she I mean, you really enjoyed the experience, you really connected with it, but then when you looked at my logo, you were like, this logo does not represent the experience that we just had. And Hanna happens to be a graphic designer. So that was really the start of our conversation. Basically in a nice way, you said, your logo sucks. And can I help you make a new one? Which she has. You can see it on my shirt here now. Um, and I mean, from there, we became friends and best friends, and then like created this community together. And so, now we lead, for close to 10 years, leading yoga teacher training and bringing people together and getting to have these meaningful conversations. And as we talk about, things don't always go as planned in life. In fact, I'll share just 2 hours ago. Wow, it's 11:11. Nice divine timing. 2 hours ago, I get a text and a phone call and a missed call from my brother, and my brother's like, "Jack, call me. It's serious news." So you want to think where my mind goes, right? When you get a text and missed
Your
calls
brother
like
doesn't
that.
call you
No,
normally.
he
You're
did.
the one to call
I
him.
call him, yeah. So that was out of the blue. And so, it goes to the worst case, like something happened to my parents or something happened to a family member. And I get on the phone, and it turns out my parents' house caught on fire. And it's like totaled, like all childhood stuff, like all of their stuff, 70 plus years. We just found this out a couple of hours ago. And as much as that sucks, right? That's so crappy. In that moment, obviously I felt so much gratitude, because I thought he was going to say something like my parents were in the house or somebody got injured or something. And so, they're safe, they're completely okay, and they were taking care of Hanna's dog. Hanna's dog Coco is okay. um, but I guess, in this moment, I feel I have so much compassion for my parents, because I know that's like their whole life. They've built up their whole life. They've created this space, you know.
Yeah, it's your dad, like your dad, his life goal was
Mm,
to retire when he's 40 and live his dream life, building
mhm.
this home for you guys and raise you in nature. So,
Yeah,
and every day of his life is dedicated to this property to keep it flowing and fixing
yeah.
things. And he loves memories. So he's gathered
Mm,
um, a lifetime
yeah.
into this home.
Yeah, it's so true. And so and this is the interesting thing for us as yogis. One of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is kind of this idea of practicing non-attachment. And we're human though, so I get it. Like when things happen. So the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, in just paraphrased in a nutshell, the first teaching is to look to your dharma. So really look to your calling, look to your life purpose. What are you meant here to do, to create, to become? And then the second piece is to do it with all of your being, all of your energy, put all of yourself into your dharma, into your purpose. And then the third step is to let go of attachment to the results, right? And this is the challenging one for us as humans, because we take actions. Often it's transactional or conditional. We do something to get something in return. But to do these things that we love, without attachment. And then the fourth step is really turning it over to higher power. So insert whatever word you resonates with you, whether that's a God, whether that's higher power, whatever energy. And so, coming back to this idea, when things happen unexpectedly, this is really an opportunity for us to really practice yoga. And so my immediate thought when I get that call from my brother, and he's like, basically, the house with all the water damage from the fire, they were up till all night, basically, with the fire hoses and stuff. And so my first thought, obviously, is like, I'm just so damn grateful that nobody was hurt. And I thought, I would give up the house, the property, all of that. I would give up all of that for one more day with my parents. Like, let's say if the worst case did happen and they were gone, like I would give up all of those material things for one more day, or many more days. Now we get many more days. And at the same time, though, even as soon as I say that, as soon as those words leave my mouth, there's an attachment there as well. Like I have an attachment to the physical bodies of loved ones in my life. And obviously that's very normal. Obviously, we can all relate with that. We have people in our lives like that. But there's something about this practice of yoga that in some way prepares us for loss and tragedy and adversity. And yeah, so this is us, this is me, this is Hanna, right now in this moment, getting to practice these yogic principles. And I won't share them all today, but there's many stories of different things that have happened throughout life that have provided opportunities to grow and to learn and to navigate. Yeah, but I know you were feeling some emotion as well before this podcast, because you having lost your first husband, it's a big thing. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like I was sitting on the couch crying 10 minutes before we hit record, um, because I guess that's like how my nervous system reacted, and a little bit of shock, and also empathy, because I know how your parents really live that house and that home and that property.
Mhm.
That's their dharma. That is their service to the world, and that is very beautiful. They do it with so much dedication. So that's what I felt. And also just even the hair of possibility of loss of them, their
Mhm.
physical bodies, obviously, makes me very emotional, because I have experienced that, and because maybe that's just how I'm wired. And I do admire you for being able to stay so grounded in a moment of shock, because this was a real possibility of losing what you cherish the most in the whole universe. I know that you are deeply connected to your parents
Mhm.
in ways that not everybody is. Like, that is something unique about you, and it's beautiful that you can stay so um grounded, and still, of course, you're reflecting on what happened and what could have happened, and you notice that how the yoga operates in you instantly, right? Like how
Mhm.
the philosophy comes, like you're living the philosophy. It's not just theory, right? That you're saying like, oh, in theory we should let go of attachment and this and that, but like you're really are able to put that into action instantly, and that's
and I
beautiful.
and I think that's what we need to do, right? I mean, obviously, we don't want to all go manifesting, adversity and tragedy, and we're not looking for that. But this is like, if we can read all the yoga books and we can take all the yoga teacher trainings, yeah, we offer 200-hour and 300-hour, and become 500, and that's amazing, and it's obviously really helpful. But when the rubber hits the road, when we get to actually apply it and
Hmm.
practice it, and coming back to the importance of community, now we got a dozen, somehow we got twice as many people now, yogis. We got Mexico in the house, we got obviously USA, UK, Canada, Ireland, yogis from all around the world who are our family. And as much as my family is going through a mini crisis right now at home, it's like, just as much, you are my family, you are my chosen family. Yeah, I see you, Tammy Lamb, thank you for that love. And I feel like this is the important thing, is to surround ourselves with people that really support us and love us and encourage us and believe in us. And so, coming back to this broad question of, what is yoga? Of course, many of us, at least for myself, it started with the poses, right? The physical asana. And that was my entrance point, right? The way I practice yoga now, which is very spiritual, I could say, very deep, very, deep, meaningful self-inquiry. If that was the first yoga class that I experienced, I'm pretty sure I would have walked out of there and said, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm here to, get a workout or get a stretch or get a whatever, get hot and sweaty. And so I'm so grateful in that sense that there is hot power yoga in the world, because that was, at least for me, that was my entrance point. But then all of a sudden, doing this physical practice of hot power yoga, it's like, yeah, I feel so good physically, and I'm making better nutrition choices because I notice how different food makes me feel when I get on the yoga mat. And then I noticed that when I was living in Calgary at the time when I discovered yoga, and I noticed that if I'm in a traffic jam, or it's a really long red light, or whatever, any number of things, just not getting so stressed out mentally. And then I feel like, especially in these recent years, after especially spending time in India, just connecting to a higher truth. And again, whatever language each yogi wants to use for that, but this higher power, God, divinity, whatever it happens to be, and recognizing that we're not the center of the universe. At least for myself, I've been self-centered. Hanna, you've known it. We've been together 10 years. you've seen my selfishness, you've seen my self-centeredness, and of course you've seen good qualities too, or you wouldn't be around. But it's I feel like the more that we do this work and we get on our mat and we do our pranayama breathing practices and we sit in meditation and we engage with beautiful souls and have, all the yogis who are here with us live right now, we get together every Sunday, right? We have Sunday satsang, and we get to connect and share and be vulnerable and be real, and all of this together is really what makes up yoga. And I'm sure in future podcasts, we're going to talk about uh, hands-on assisting and the importance of hands-on assisting and physical connection and what's possible. We'll talk at some point about alignment and bringing integrity into our physical body to then take integrity into our entire lives. But really, understanding that there's so much to this practice. And so, for you, Hanna, if you were to reflect on all the different facets of yoga and the beautiful experience we had this weekend with friends, what would you say is one of the most meaningful aspects of yoga, of the practice, of the lifestyle?
I think that um, like what you share about like finding yoga through the physical yogasana is often the entry point for most people in the West. And it's like in a way, what you share is a pretty typical journey into the world of yoga. Like you just start doing the movements, whether it's hot power or slow, like it doesn't matter what type of physical yogasana, but most people will notice that there's something about the practice that makes it different than Pilates or CrossFit or running or swimming. Even though those can be very meditative practices, there's something about yoga that if you keep practicing it, you become curious. Like it's almost like the physical yogasana is some type of like there's it's kind of like you plug, if the universe had like this electricity circuit, and with yogasana you plug your fingers into the socket. You become part of a bigger web of wisdom or something, because most people will notice that the effects and the aftermath of a yoga class and being in a yoga community, practicing with other people on their yoga mats, something shifts. And most of us become curious about like, what is it about yoga that makes me feel so good and so connected, not just to myself, but to other people, even though I practice on my yoga mat and I make sure not to like, take up more space on my yoga mat in a yoga class. Some type of connection happens. And do you want to talk about the meaning of the word yoga?
Yeah, I can mention that. And I'll share as well, like what yoga really means. So yoga, it's a Sanskrit word. It means to unite or to yoke, to connect. It really means connection. And so obviously this is an opportunity for us to either connect with our breath, to connect with our life purpose, to connect with other yogis in the space, to connect with our community. So yoga, it really is expansive and vast like that. And of all the things, of the many things we've talked about now, I feel like one of the most powerful aspects of the practice, and we've seen it here with our community, at Happy Jack Yoga University, when we're doing a 200-hour hero's journey, or whether we're having a beautiful satsang conversation, it's this deep self-inquiry. And I remember, I've done a lot of yoga teacher trainings over the years, here in the US and in Europe and lots in India. And I remember one of my first yoga teacher trainings, it was in Austin, Texas. And we got Katie from Texas in the house. We're sending some love to you, Katie. And so it was a 7-day program. And it was about halfway through the program on a Wednesday night. And our teacher, it was 10 p.m. And our teacher said, everybody get on your yoga mat. We're going to practice. And I remember thinking to myself, like 10 o'clock, that's bedtime for me. Shouldn't we be going to bed by now? And anyways, we get on our yoga mats and we do a 2-hour long hip opening practice. So if you're newer to yoga, these hip openers are very, at least for me, they're very uncomfortable. They're challenging. And they really get it deep into your hips, then where they say we store emotions, a lot of different feelings and emotions in there. So we were holding these poses for quite a long time. We did a happy frog pose. Our yogis, our community knows that one, for like 25 minutes. That's a long happy frog. And so after like 2 hours of this hip opening yoga practice, now it's midnight. And our teacher says, everybody get with a partner, get with somebody that you haven't had a chance to get to know yet. And that's something we do with our community as well, like keep meeting new people. And so I sit down with this girl, Carrie from Seattle, and I didn't know her at the time. And we've since become great friends. And so we sit down, face to face, cross-legged, and then the lights go out and we're instructed. So now each of us, we have 10 minutes to share our deepest, darkest secrets. And inside there's a little bit of that, like, what? But this is a safe space, right? It's a yoga teacher training. It's confidential. We're all here doing the work together. We just did 2 hours of hip openers. And so I meet with Carrie and I'm like, okay, deepest, darkest secrets. Well, one, I was an alcoholic for many years, and I see we got some sober friends. Shout out to Elizabeth, and no doubt others as well who are on that path. By the way, not here to preach or say that everybody needs to be sober, but that was, I was 15 years alcoholic and now 14 years sober, which I'm very grateful for. So I shared with Carrie, for 15 years out of control, also with stupid drugs like crack cocaine and crystal meth and ridiculous stuff like that, obviously sober from that. Something that happened is that I had cheated on my first wife. Not something I'm proud of. This is a woman, friends of Hanna and I. Now, you met her after, somebody that we still love, and
she's taken our training.
She's taken our 200-hour yoga teacher training. Thankfully we have a beautiful relationship with her now. But that's something foolish and silly and that I did. And so I shared that with Carrie. But then something else that came up in that moment, that I shared, was that when I was 16, I'd had a sexual experience with another guy. And I had suppressed this memory. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was confused, and I had just suppressed this. So this was like for 15 years. And anyways, then I shared with Carrie, and anyways, after that, she shared back her deepest, darkest secrets. And then we went to a noble silence. So for the rest of the night, we couldn't talk. I go back to my bunk bed. I'm laying in my bunk bed with my, different yogi roommates. Couldn't say anything, just with all these feelings and emotions. And the next day we're eating breakfast in silence. And of course, eventually, we could speak and share. And, for me, that was such a liberating experience to be able to share that. Now, of course, those things, I don't condone them. They're terrible. It's not good. It's not who I want to be. It's not who I am anymore. But those are some things that I've done in my past, and to be able to express them and to share them in a safe space where I wasn't judged, it was so liberating and so freeing. And so I really feel like this is the potential of yoga. And, by the way, we're not, all of the yogis here with us live, we're not going to demand or expect you to send us your deepest, darkest secrets. That's not the intention of this, but really just to understand what's possible from this practice.
Yeah. And what I hear in that is also that yoga is a lifestyle that creates the circumstances for each of us to, be the person we want to be, and be someone we are proud to be, and who we, like, it's a lifestyle that helps you become your highest self, like the best version of you. And it's not easy to do that alone. Like, everyone has done a diet or whatever, like, I'm gonna do this. And then a little bit later, we let go of that ambition. But because of the union of yoga, meaning there's a community, that's why Jack and I are enthusiastically, every time we come, like, we leave live calls like this between 3 and 5, 6, 7 times a week with our community, depending on what training we're leading and what's happening. But basically, we are with our community, and typically it's not just you and I talking. Like now, there's a podcast, so we're talking mainly. But on the normal calls, we all share. Everybody gets to share either in a breakout room with a friend, or through the chat, or they raise a hand and we talk together. So yoga is a lifestyle that you can access in the ways that is appropriate for you. So it's not like everybody needs to do what Jack does or I do, but there are lots of things we can do to support ourselves be our best selves. And then the other aspect of this is that it's a community, right? Where we are lifting each other up, and not just Jack and I lifting each other up, but the community lifts itself up when we're in a training together and we share and we are in inquiry around these topics, like what's easy and what's hard. It's not about like everything's always an ocean of bliss, because it isn't. It's difficult to be our best selves sometimes. And so what I hear in your share is that this path has made you a better person, like who you're proud to be, right? It gives you a context, like a different reality where you can be who you really want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like a level of accountability as well. You talk about lifting each other up. Honestly, the dozen other yogis here with us, you speaking for myself, you lift me up every week. Because this is the thing, as yoga teachers, we can say it's our dharma, it's our purpose, it's our calling. This is what we love. This is what we do. But let's be honest, there's lots of days it would be so much easier to just, stay in bed or stay or whatever, do anything else other than show up and hold the space and facilitate. So what I'm saying is, very often before I'm leading the calls on Sunday, there's a little bit of inner resistance of like, oh, I'd rather just go for a walk or take it easy. But I'll tell you what, every single time that we come together for Sunday satsang or a 200-hour sharing circle or any of the other calls that we have, I feel like you all lift me up, through your sharing, through your vulnerability. And I guess that's part of what our hope and our wish is of this podcast, is that, through our sharing, it'll, inspire you to just reflect and to think and to surround yourself, whether it's locally, whether it's online, like finding people that you can have these meaningful conversations with. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Mel, who is my ex-wife. And because she's actually, as we speak, and hopefully she'll watch this one day, she's in rehab right now and she's getting sober. And we are so damn proud of her. She doesn't have access to a phone or anything right now, but I'll tell you what, because we were on that path together of the partying and the, just really not heading in a good direction. And the fact that she's now inspired to make changes. And again, I always have this little disclaimer that, we're not saying everybody needs to give up alcohol. If you can enjoy a glass of wine and that works for you, then, you do you. But definitely for me, definitely for some of us, it's like a necessary thing. And the same with, nutrition. Yeah, I happen to be vegan, but I'm not here. And I know several of you are, but many are not. And that is okay as well, right? That we find this balance, we find this way to make it work for us. Because as much as we do the practices of yoga and prepare ourselves, there's life continues to present us with opportunities. And yeah, another fun, I won't say fun, but unexpected experience was 10 years ago now. It's 2013. Had just arrived to Finland. I was there. I living with my mom's mom. I wanted to connect to my Finnish roots, teaching yoga, sharing what I love, connecting with great yogis. And then all of a sudden I got diagnosed with cancer. Did not expect that.
How old were you?
10 years ago. So I guess I'm turning 33. Yeah, 33. And so, totally didn't expect that. And yet in that moment, when I got that diagnosis, I felt immense gratitude, just like I did today.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, and as much as it sucks, and that sucked, and it sucks about my parents' house catching on fire and all the stuff being destroyed, I felt that when I got that diagnosis of cancer, I felt this immense gratitude. And I was like, you know what? Um, even if, and I've said this to you before, even if the worst case scenario, and I had like 6 months to live, um, I feel so fulfilled with this path by living a yogic lifestyle, surrounding myself with amazing, beautiful souls like all of you here with us live, all of you listening. And, and so anyways, I had to, organize some things, and I had to go back to Toronto, and I was back in Canada for a month. So basically there was this period of 1 month that I knew that I had cancer. Probably it was there some months before, but this 1 month that I was aware of it. And that 1 month was truthfully one of the best months of my life. I got to come back home to Canada to be with my family, who, I love so much. I got to meet my nephew, Gus, who was just born. So he's 10 now, right? He was just born at that time, and did a great course on life coaching, really got into coaching as well as the yoga. Had a quick surgery, and within a month, back in Finland, back in Helsinki, teaching yoga, sharing what I love. In fact, it happened so quickly, and I know that's not the case for everybody who gets a serious diagnosis. It can go very differently. And we say all of this sensitively, but there was almost a part of me that was a little bit disappointed. Because I had this like vision of like I'm gonna spend all this time at the Toronto sick kids hospital, and I'm gonna play some guitar and sing some songs and teach some yoga to these kids who are going through tough times. But then all of a sudden I'm healthy, I'm healed. So back in Finland and doing what I love, but it if those kind of things happened, if the cancer diagnosis, if the what happened today with losing home, if those things all happened before I found the practice of yoga, I know that I would have been a lot more stressed, and a lot more fear, and a lot more overwhelm. And so really, I feel like this practice of yoga, it prepares us as best as it can for life. It prepares us to be better in relationships. It prepares us to connect with a higher power, if that's something that we relate with. It prepares us for adversity. And again, all that said, we have to create it in our own authentic way, because we are very different. I mean, I'll just share, well, just for fun, I'll just read my phone. This is what I do every morning. And please do not compare, and please do not think that this is the only way to practice yoga. My alarm goes off at 4 a.m. and then I jump into an ice bath. Love it. First thing, cold therapy. Get into the ice cold water. I have my lemon water, and then right onto the yoga mat.
Now it's 4:30.
Now it's
4 alarms already went off.
Yeah, these are just little, and they're not, what's the word? They're not like alarms. They're like,
no,
wah, wah.
I can't hear them.
Yeah, they're just very
like
gentle.
when I'm here.
And when I hear the alarm goes out, it's like, yes, I get to get into the cold bath. Yes, I get to make my lemon water. Oh yeah, now I get to get on my yoga mat. And this is, it's something that I love, and it works for me. So now, get on the yoga mat, doing some pranayama, and then by 5 o'clock, this is when I get into meditation, and right these days, really practicing mantra meditation. So, chanting on these malas. For those who are watching this video, the audio can't see, but I have this japa bag, right, with my malas in here. So chanting, then studying Sanskrit, which is, the divine. At
5:30.
5:30, just studying Sanskrit. Then having some greens juice, and then going for a walk, because now it's 6:30 in the morning. The sun is up. I've done all those hours of practice before the sun comes up, which is in the yogic tradition is called Brahma Muhurta. So those couple of hours before the sun comes up is the most auspicious time. It's when we're most connected. It's like the mind is still, the mind is sattvic, which means pure. So it's a beautiful time to practice. So then now the sun comes up, go out for a walk, continue chanting my mantra while walking, getting in vitamin D. And then I work out, every day I either strength train or cardio. and one day, I should say, one day off a week, 3 days a week of strength train, 3 days a week of cardio, one day of rest, and yoga every day. And so, do that for 45 minutes. Then it's breakfast. But by the way, breakfast is not the way that it used to be. Now when I prepare breakfast, I prepare it with love. Instead of like rushing and hurrying and like driving somewhere while I'm shoveling oatmeal into my mouth.
And being someone who has like an aversion to anything kitchen related.
Yeah, that's a big transformation.
Yeah.
Because that's a good point, because I'm not a guy who loves being in the kitchen, but now I just have this totally different perspective. It's like now I'm preparing it with love, so that I can be my best, but even more so, preparing it for divinity, for higher power, to connect with higher power. That's, at least for me, a big part of this yoga practice, and it doesn't have to be for everybody.
And what's the prayer you say before you eat it to help you? What is the?
So before I eat, I bless by saying, dear Lord, thank you for blessing us with this sanctified food. Please empower us with the energy obtained from this prasadam to serve you with love and be an instrument of your grace. And that was a simple prayer from a Swami named Radhanath Swami. And it's really just about, saying thanks and saying appreciation. And so,
and let's turn this into service.
That's right. Turn it into service. And so that I can be nourished to then serve others. And I feel like, I still got a long way to go. I got lots of defects and faults and all of that. But it's like, by doing these practices, it helps me show up here better for all of you. All of you here live with us in Zoom, all of you listening on the podcast, all of you members of Happy Jack Yoga University. And so anyways, then after that, I won't get in all the details.
The list goes on.
The list goes on. My day planner. By the way, I should do a little plug. But before the end of the year, a Happy Jack Yoga planner will be released, and it's really a day planner, so that you can decide, well, what time of day am I going to do my meditation? What time am I going to do my asana? What time am I going to go to bed, so that I get up at a certain time? And just put in your different calendar appointments. Have some morning journaling questions to really get you in that feeling of gratitude, some evening reflection questions so that you can celebrate. It's so easy to focus on what's not going right in our lives, to just be able to, so anyways, that.
And to help yogis and ourselves to what we learned this weekend as this, like, keeping the main thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you're a disciplined person. I think you feel accomplished with each alarm going off, and that's how you work. But the main thing of all of this at the end of the day is for each of us to find the way to practice. Maybe we do one of those things that Jack does, 15 of, because that's how he's made. That doesn't mean that we all need to turn into little Happy Jacks by any mean, but what is the main thing for you in this lifetime, with what you have, what resources you have been given in this very moment? What's the point of all of this? What's the point of getting up every day? Like, I think that too is something that we often don't have time or space to reflect on, because life is busy and we are all overwhelmed with responsibilities and duties and have to make money, and I promised this to my friend, and I have kids, and a million things that we have to do and also want to do. And it can turn into this kind of a rat race where we just keep on doing things, maybe less mindfully and with less relaxation or with less ease. So all of these practices at the end of the day are about finding what's the main thing for you. How can you thrive and have a feeling of expansion, of being like, we think that when we're teenagers or babies, that's when we grow and that's when we become somebody. But research shows that never should stop, and we never are the one same thing that we thought we were. What I find fascinating about all of this practice, like what wakes me up enthusiastically when I can connect to that enthusiasm, it's because I'm excited to see what I will learn today, what will my experience be on my yoga mat, and what I learn about myself and the life I'm living, the people that I share my life with. It's exciting to me. And when it doesn't feel exciting, that means I'm depressed, something's in the way, I'm not keeping the main thing for whatever reason. Not to put blame on me, it can be the circumstances as well. And so
Mhm.
all this to say that in your daily planner, our daily planner
Mhm.
will put together a system where you can reflect and then plan your day accordingly, and
Mhm.
so that it feels like there's a deeper purpose than just, eating and sleeping and waking up and eating, on repeat.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it really, what it does, it brings intention.
Mm.
It brings intention to each moment of our day. It brings intention to our life in general. And coming back to, many of us here are yoga teachers. Certainly, probably everybody listening is a yogi, a practitioner, and many of us are yoga teachers. And our intention makes such a difference when we show up for our students, whether it's in Zoom class, whether it's in person. If we have that focus on ourselves, they're like, oh, what are they going to think of me? Am I going to do good? Are they going to like it? Do they want this? Maybe they don't want that. If we're like kind of self focus on ourselves,
Mm.
it's just very small. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just, it's limited, versus if our intention is like, how can I serve? How can I lift others up? How can I, hold the space so that everybody can, can be uplifted to progress, to do this great work.
And even if you're not a teacher, but you have a family, you have a
Hmm.
workplace, you have people in your life that you're interacting with, and it's through those relationships also that we grow and expand, and we need to learn how to manage them in a healthy way, and keep growing, hopefully together, right?
Hmm.
So even if not everyone wants to be a yoga teacher, the same principles apply to everyone who is alive, who has a body and breathes.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, like, really another aspect of this practice, like, yes, on our yoga mat, the asana practice is balance, right? So we challenge our balance, but then it's about like really being able to bring balance into our everyday lives. And that's something I work on. I'm a Libra. I'm very extreme. I go, from this side to that side. And I'd like to feel like at this stage of life, it's all good, but it can be extreme. And if I think about, coming back to material possessions that we talked about earlier, there was a time when I lived in the US. I'm Canadian. Well, I'm in the US again now, but 2006, 2007, working for John Deere, living in the US. And, we had a big house out in the countryside. Um, and then I relocated to Calgary, Alberta, and downsized into a condo, but it was still fancy, and it was high rise, and you could see the Rocky Mountains. And then as I find yoga, then I'm like, well, I don't need all of this. And then I moved into a basement suite, and really lived in this basement suite for several years. That's where I did the majority of, this self inquiry and the yogic growth. And then, from there, moved in with my parents into the house, and did that, and then eventually left, and took the one-way ticket to India, and was homeless. And just like sleeping on airport benches, staying at little cheap hostels, whatever. And as I kind of let go of those material attachments, I felt more and more free. As I all of the couch and the TV and stuff I had in my home, I gave that to my ex, gave that to Mel, and it felt so liberating to have nothing. And obviously, so I did that extreme, and then I've come back to a bit of a balance now. And so we're not suggesting that everybody needs to give up all their material possessions, or take a one-way ticket to India, or leave a relationship, but really, simple living. And again, I see Elizabeth here on our top row, who's really committed to living simply. And there's this idea in yoga of like simple living and high thinking, right? So it's not versus getting indulged in all the distractions. And it's honestly, it's almost like it makes no material sense. Like, it doesn't make sense sometimes, the lifestyles we choose, the disciplines that we bring into our lives. we get on yoga mats and do these uncomfortable postures, right? Most people are doing everything they can to avoid discomfort, right? And I'm just as guilty of it. I do it too. But whether that's, watching Netflix, getting caught up in social media, stuffing my face with food, in the past, if it was the alcohol, the drugs, the work, being a workaholic, all these things that we distract with, and yet as yogis we intentionally challenge ourselves, discipline ourselves, stretch ourselves beyond our comfort zone, whether that's waking up at 4 a.m. or getting in a cold black bath, or doing a pigeon pose, right? Whatever it is for us. And it really prepares us. In a way, it prepares us for the unexpected things in life. And again, there's just like this feeling. I guess this is my wish for every single person listening to this. And I know it's not easy, and I know it's not, doesn't happen immediately, but like really my wish is that we all find that thing, whether it's yoga, whether it's community, whether it's something completely different. Find that thing that makes us feel alive and just lights us up and lifts us up. I spent, 40 close to many years of my life. I didn't, want to get out of bed, or it's just like, oh, it'd be so much easier to whatever. But now I can truthfully say, I can't wait to get up and get going and doing these practices and just feel like there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. I feel like the whole world is sleeping. They are literally, or at least people in my time zone. The whole world is sleeping, and to be, you know, doing this work so that I can become better, to contribute, to help others. This is what yoga is for me. And yet, if you asked me 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been a very different answer. And so I love, what you shared earlier, Hanna, that it's always evolving. It's always changing, and we're always growing, and I got a long way to go. You know it, but we're doing the work.
Yeah, I love what you said about feeling that there's what you're doing right now, like this moment. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing than what I am doing. Like, imagine that level for each of us, like independently of what that it means for Happy Jack or me or your neighbor, but for yourself, like, what would that mean if, and maybe you are living it, and that's beautiful. It's a blessing. And then I would want you to go deeper into it and really feel it and stay in it. But like, if you're not there, what would that mean? Like, what kind of life, what kind of circumstance would it need to be for you to be able to say that what I'm engaged in right now in my life is exactly what I want to be doing. This is who I want to be. And this is like, here's where I belong. Like sometimes I have glimpses of that, and then sometimes I don't. And though it is a reality. I know it's possible because I've had that, I've lived that. And maybe it's a moment to moment thing. It doesn't always mean like I've got my life figured out. I know where I'm going to be in 5 years. No, just right now, what would that feel like? And how can I stay in it when I do feel it? And what would be the ideal circumstances for me to feel, I like this. What's happening right now is beautiful and is a blessing, and I'm happy with this. I'm where I need to be, right? We do have a say in that, right?
Yeah, and I feel like just surrounding ourselves with people who either have found that, who are on that path, which is the case for many of the yogis here with us live and in the community, and even for those of us that haven't yet, just being with people that are seeking, that are like just sincerely asking questions and seeking, and just really genuinely, committed to becoming their best selves. And so even if we haven't all figured it out, which really none of us have in a way, just being in community with those who are on that path. And it's a big part of what we do here. I'm excited. Just a couple of weeks that the next 200-hour hero's journey begins. I'll just do a quick plug for that.
Great way to find out what we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean that's what you think that when you sign up for 200-hour yoga teacher training, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to learn how to teach a sun salutation and get a certificate.
You will.
Which you will. And it's really so much more than that. And so we've led these trainings all around the world, from Canada to Europe to India, all over the world, and now we get to do it online. So just the way that you're connecting with us now, in fact, everybody here with us live has done the 200-hour hero's journey, no surprise, and beyond.
Some of you many times.
Some of you many times, because we know that
fun.
It's fun and the work never stops. But anyways, if you're interested, if you want to just connect, send us an email, info@happyjackyoga.com. Again,
or also any questions, any thoughts, anything you'd want us to discuss on this podcast. That's the best way to interact with us. info@happyjackyoga.com.
Yeah, that's right. Send us questions, because we got a lot of really amazing topics that we're excited to engage in. And at the same time, we want it to be relevant. So, send us questions. Our intention, we're going to be here each week, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. here, Zoom. By the way, if you want to join us live in Zoom, send us an email to that info@happyjackyoga.com. We'll send you the Zoom link, the secret Zoom code, so that you can come in here for this 1 hour a week. And, we get to say hello and connect with some of the yogis before we hit record. And just be able to be in the space and, connect. Some of the yogis are sending chats to one another. So if you have questions, please let us know. And of course, there's many, many other courses. I'm not going to overwhelm with them, but we got Yoga Nidra course starting in a few weeks as well. That's yogic sleep, which is very powerful and very, necessary these days. And then also, just whatever, really our wish for you is to spend time with people that lift you up, spend time with people that nourish you. You do that for me, Hanna, all of you on the Zoom do that for us. And please join us whenever you can. The other thing I'll say, we've set up a Patreon account, patreon.com/happyjackyoga. If this is episode 1. So we're not expecting anything. But if you tune in for a few weeks and you're like, what, this is really great and it lifts me up. And, if you want to make a small contribution for the price of a cup of coffee per month, $5, you can make a donation. And that really supports us to keep this podcast going and really being able to share with all of you. So we're excited because right after this, we get to upload our very first episode 1. It's going to be in Spotify. It's going to be in Apple Podcasts. It's going to be in Google Podcasts. We are live on Facebook right now. We're going to upload this to YouTube. And of course, we get to be here in Zoom live and see the faces of our best friends. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. So many things more that we want to share, but that'll come in upcoming podcasts. But please, if I could just leave with, if you could, send some love and prayers and high vibes to my parents, who had this big shock this morning of the house. Let's send them some love, and we appreciate you. We love you, yogis, and we're going to see you again very soon. Community, we're going to see you very soon. Make it an amazing day.
Thanks for being here.
And we'll see you soon. Namaste.
Namaste, friends.